Inquiry, transcript, Oran. Station case file ref, NHA-0291. Natural Heritage Archive. Discovery and registration. Inquiry. Subject, Sergeant Blaine Carver, Marine Corps. 4th Expeditionary Recording, Active Sergeant Carver. Thank you for coming in. Before we begin, can you confirm your name, rank, and the nature of your presence on Oran Station on the date in question? Blaine Carver, Sergeant, Marine Corps, 4th Expeditionary Division. I was on approved shore leave, returning from the Kalahari frontier settlements, transit through Oran Station, on my way back to base. I had the correct transit documentation, the correct personal effects manifest, and the correct companion animal registration form. I have copies of all three if you need them. I brought copies. I always bring copies. That won't be necessary at this stage. Can you describe what happened when you arrived at Docking Bay 9? Sure. Normal arrival. Docked at Bay 9, collected my gear, collected my animal, presented at the processing terminal, everything in order. I'd actually filled the form out twice because the first time I used the wrong ink color there was a note on the portal saying blue ink only, and I'd used black, so I did it again, blue ink. Very clear form, good layout. And the animal, can you describe the animal for the record? He's large, grey, mostly, though he goes a bit blue-green when he's relaxed. Flat head, wide, 4 paws webbed, tail like a paddle at the end. He's got the eyelid thing, which I know looks alarming the first time, but you get used to it. He blinks in sequence. 8 of them, one after the other, takes a couple of seconds start to finish. I find it calming, personally. Like a clock, 8 eyelids, right. On one animal. On one animal, yes. Is that relevant? I can check if there's a field for eyelid count on the form. I don't think I filled that one in, but I can go back and... That's fine, Sergeant. Please continue. Tell me about the processing terminal. What happened when you presented the manifest to the docking clerk? Docking Bay 9 was running about a third full, that shift cargo containers stacked along the far wall. Amber work lights throwing everything at ground level in this warm yellow-orange. The rest of the bay in that cool industrial blue they use for overhead panels. Nice contrast, actually. I've been through worse bays. Stellan was at the processing terminal. That's the clerk Stellan. Blonde, blue eyes, burnt sienna jacket, the kind of person who looks like she's been stationed somewhere beneath her. She had the terminal pulled up, manifest reader ready, stamp in hand. Very professional setup. I appreciated that. I presented my documents in the order specified on the intake checklist, transit papers first, then personal effects, then the companion animal registration form. She stamped the transit papers, stamped the personal effects, picked up the companion animal form, read it, kept reading it. Her hand, the one with the stamp, came up to the hovering position, where you've committed to the downward stamp motion but haven't completed it yet. It stayed there. The stamp stayed there. She stayed there. I want to say it was about 20 seconds, which doesn't sound like long, but try holding a stamp in the air for 20 seconds and see how it feels. I asked if there was a problem. She said, no. She said it in the tone that means yes. I asked if the form was correctly filled out. She looked at the form. She looked at my animal, who was sitting beside me on his canvas leash, with his fur going a calm medium grey, and all 8 eyelids doing a slow full sequence open to close, close to open, very peaceful, very steady. She looked at the form again. It's filled out correctly, she said. The stamp came down. I heard it hit the paper. I'm not sure she looked at where she was stamping when she did it because she was still looking at my animal. But it came down. Form processed. And the security officer present, can you describe what happened with him? That was Zovak. He's junior security, one of Voric's people, Voric being the chief. I'll get to him. Zovak was running a cargo sweep on the far side of the bay when we came in. I noticed him because he's noticeable warm gold skin, these tall pointed ears that swivel like satellite dishes, 4 arms, amber-brown antlers, 2 eyes the color of new leaves. Very put together, except for the uniform, which was doing its best. He had a scanner in one of his lower hands and a datapad in one of his upper hands, and he was doing 2 separate jobs at once, which I understand is just how he operates. He looked over when Stellan went quiet. I know he looked over because I saw his eyes find my animal at the same moment they converged, both eyes, like they'd been individually searching and arrived at the same destination simultaneously. His tall ears swiveled forward to their full extent. Both antlers caught the amber worklight and went briefly gold. Then the scanner slipped out of his lower hand. It hit the deck, bounced once, skipped twice, and disappeared under a cargo container with a sound that suggested it had gone quite far underneath. Zovak watched it go. All 4 of his hands were now empty, which was clearly not the intended outcome of any of his movements. They just sort of arrived at empty, all 4 of them, in sequence, like his body had made a unilateral decision to stop holding things and hadn't told him first. He stood like that for a moment. My animal yawned. The full sequence eyelid 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, all closing in a slow wave, then opening the same way. Unhurried. Thorough. Zovak looked at me. I gave him a nod. He didn't nod back. He was already reaching for his communicator with one hand, bracing the other 3 against approximately nothing, and taking a very controlled step backward that he probably thought looked casual. You described the animal as being on a canvas leash. A standard canvas leash. Standard issue, yes. It came with a tag. I had it engraved. His name's on it. His name, Kyle. You named the animal. I didn't name him, that's just his name. He responds to it. Has since the coastal market at Kelhari Settlement 9. That's where I got him. There was a very reasonable price, very clear transaction, and the gentleman selling him pointed me to the government registration portal on his personal terminal right there on the spot. Very convenient. Very efficient. I thought it was excellent service, honestly. We'll return to the market. For now, what happened after the docking clerk processed your form? Stellan processed the clearance documentation, printed it, dated it, handed it across the terminal. I signed where indicated. Then she told me to proceed to intake processing for the standard biometric scan, which I was expecting. Standard procedure. I gathered my gear and Kyle and we went through. The intake corridor is narrow terracotta walls, gold strip lighting along the ceiling, one scanning arch standing in the middle like it's very pleased with itself. Zovak had come around ahead of us by a different route, which I appreciated as efficiency. He was running a secondary scanner over Kale when I arrived, a replacement for the one under the cargo container. He held it at what I'd describe as arm's length, which for Zovak means 2 arms length, so a reasonable distance. The scanner beeped once. Then it beeped again. Then it displayed something on its screen. I was at an angle. I couldn't read it, and Zovak's 2 eyes tracked the screen at slightly different speeds, left before right. A small lag between them which gave his face this uneven quality, like information arriving in 2 separate deliveries. He turned the scanner to show Stellan, who had followed us through. She read it. She pressed her lips together in a very specific way that told me she'd found something and had decided to let the scanner say it first. The scanner had displayed error across its screen. Below that, in a second language, also error. Below that, in a third language I didn't recognize, presumably also error. Then the screen went dark. Zovak shook it twice. The screen stayed dark. He looked at it with both of his eyes, though his attention kept drifting back to Kyle, which I understood. Kale walked up to the scanning arch. The arch lit up blue, then amber, cycling. The cycle took about 6 seconds, I counted. Zovak and Stellan both watched the arch with the posture of people who have prepared themselves for one particular outcome and are hoping very much that it arrives. The arch went green. It made its standard approval sound. The small indicator light on the side panel flipped to cleared, non-threatening fauna. I thanked the arch, not literally. I picked up my documents and proceeded. The arch cleared the animal. Cleared him, yes. Green light, standard approval tone, full clearance. I have the printout. It's in my file with the other copies. And you weren't surprised. Why would I be surprised? I had the form. The form was correct. The arch agreed with the form. That's what arches are for, Sergeant. At what point were you made aware that the animal species classification in the station database was listed as, and I'm quoting directly from the file, theoretical, museum category? No active containment protocol. Last verified sighting, 200 years ago. That would have been when Chief Voric showed it to me in the security office. And what was your reaction? I asked him if that meant there was a problem with the form. What did he say? He didn't say anything immediately. He looked at the screen for a while. Then he looked at Kyle. Kyle was sitting on the floor next to my chair. He'd got his tail over the seat of the chair at some point, not intentionally. He just sweeps it when he turns, and he was doing a full eyelid sequence. Very slow, very calm. Then Voric looked at me. He has 8 eyes. I want to be clear that I was aware of this and had no reaction to it. I've worked with a lot of species. It's not relevant. But I mention it because when all 8 of them look at you at the same time, it does land with a certain weight. They're a very particular shade of violet, very focused. There are a lot of them, he said. Where did you get this animal, Sergeant? I told him about the market. He listened to all of it. The shore leave, the settlement, the coastal market, the gentleman, the portal, the form, the blue ink. He listened to all of it with his 8 eyes very level and his expression very composed, except for the 2 slim features along his jaw. They're part of his species biology. I don't know the exact term, which had shifted slightly outward in a way I'd noticed they did when he was processing something he hadn't processed before. The plant in the corner of the office had, at some point, been leaned on by Kale's tail and was now at about a 40-degree angle. I didn't mention it. It seemed like the wrong moment. Voric pulled up the threat classification database on his screen. He opened the archived file. He turned the screen so I could see it. Rorathi more predator status. Theoretical museum category, no active containment protocol, last verified sighting 200 years prior. Below that in smaller text, classification archived pending verified re-emergence. No active alert protocols assigned. He looked at me. Kale's fur shifted from grey to a deep soft teal, the colour he goes when he's settled somewhere comfortable. I looked at the form I'd submitted. I looked at the screen. I looked at Kale. So I'm free to go? I asked. Voric's 8 eyes held on me for a long moment. The 2 slim features at his jaw shifted fully outward for the first time since I'd met him, both of them, simultaneously, and then held there. He didn't answer. He didn't answer for what I'd estimate was a full 30 seconds, which is a long time to not answer a yes or no question. I've been in interrogations, actual ones, military grade, with people who were professionally trained to be uncomfortable, and 30 seconds of silence from a man with 8 violet eyes and a crystalline lattice visible under his skin in the office lighting is a different category of experience entirely. Then he said, "Stay here." He left the room. The door closed. Kale's tail swept once across the floor in a slow, comfortable arc, knocking the already tilted plant the remaining 40 degrees into full horizontal. It lay there. Neither of us commented. What happened after Chief Voric left the room? Zovak came in through the second door, with Stellan right behind him. She was carrying a stack of printed documents that was genuinely unreasonable for the amount of time that had passed since she'd processed my manifest. She was moving fast, heels sharp on the floor, blonde hair catching the warm overhead light, and she was reading the top document while walking, which is how she missed Kyle's leash trailing across the floor. She caught her foot on it mid-stride. The stack left her hands completely, some sheets going left, some going right, 2 achieving brief optimistic height before settling. Stellan caught herself on the door frame with one hand, which showed impressive reflexes, but the documents were already comprehensively distributed across the floor. She stood a moment looking at them. "I had those sorted," she said, to no one in particular. Zovak, with his lower two hands, had caught 3 sheets mid-air before they landed. He held them out without comment. She took them without comment. I collected the rest from the floor. The one nearest my boot had a large red border and text reading, Priority Extinction Level Response Containment Protocol Ref, RMP-001. 38 pages. Page 1 of 38, it said at the bottom, which is how I knew. I handed it to Voric, who had come back in through the first door while I was collecting papers and was standing behind me. I hadn't heard him enter. I'll note that is genuinely impressive for a man whose tail has segmented crystalline sections. He took the document, read the first page, and I watched his 8 eyes move across it, upper 4 tracking first, then lower 4, then upper 4 again, as though the answer had been unsatisfying the first time and he was checking whether it improved on a second pass. It did not appear to improve. He passed it to Stellan. Her pale blue eyes went very wide and she said something at a volume I hadn't expected from someone her size. Then she straightened her jacket, smoothed her expression, and said, "I'll file this under active review." I thought that was very professional. "Tell me about the Xenobiology assessment." "You brought the animal to Dr. Cecily's laboratory on level 4. Voric sent me up with Zovak. Cecily had already received the species ID and the database entry simultaneously, which Zovak told me on the way up was not a smooth delivery. The alert had come through while she was mid-cataloguing, and she'd stood up faster than the cataloguing tray anticipated. The tray was still on the floor when we arrived. I can confirm this. She was standing in the center of the lab when we came through the door. Very still, very composed, pale, teal-green skin catching the violet lab lighting, all 3 copper-amber eyes on the door, long teal nails already moving in a slow, deliberate tap against the ivory worktop, the bearing of someone who had decided to be calm and was executing that decision through considerable effort. Her iridescent cheekbone scales were cycling between warm gold and a cooler silver, not settling on either. Her spiral horns caught the violet light above her in a way that made them look like they were carved from the room itself. Kale came through the door and sat down. He looked at her. She looked at him. He performed a full eyelid sequence, all 8, slow and complete, start to finish, the way he always does when he's settled somewhere new. Her cheekbone scales went white, not silver white, both of them simultaneously, for approximately 2 full seconds. Then the cycling started again. Then she picked up her assessment tablet and began taking notes, because she is a scientist, and the animal was present, and that is simply what you do. Her long teal nails tapped the tablet screen as she worked. I noticed her hands weren't shaking. I was specifically checking, and they were shaking a very small amount, which I thought showed real character given the circumstances. Zovak positioned himself at the lab door, not officially guarding it, since no threat classification existed to guard against, but present with the specific, focused energy of someone who has decided that standing here is what they are doing regardless of what the paperwork says. 2 of his arms were braced, one against the door frame, one flat against the wall beside it. His other 2 hung in the particular ready stillness of hands that want something to do and haven't found it yet. His tall deer ears were fully extended. His feline tail had gone completely still, which I'd worked out by then was not the relaxed kind of still. The assessment ran about 20 minutes. Kale sat through all of it without moving. He allowed Zovak's 3rd scanner of the day, borrowed from the lab supply after the previous 2, had their own difficulties, to be run over him without any reaction whatsoever. He yawned once, fully, all 8 eyelids in sequence. At one point he rested the full weight of his broad, flat skull on my knee, which is a significant amount of weight, and I patted him. Cecily recorded this in her notes. I know because I watched her write it, then look at me, then write something additional. I did not ask what the additional thing was. At roughly the 17-minute mark, Kale's tail paddle swept a slow, comfortable arc to the left and connected gently with a rolling equipment cart. The cart drifted into a second cart. The second cart surrendered a tray of specimen jars onto the lab floor. The jars were empty good, but they were glass less good. 6 of them went in 6 different directions with what I can only describe as coordinated enthusiasm. Zovak caught 2 with his lower hands before they reached the door. He did this without moving his upper arms from their braced positions, without changing his expression, and without looking away from Kale. He simply bent, lower hands moving independently, retrieved both jars, and replaced them on the nearest surface. The other 4 I collected from various points across the floor. Cecily had not moved from her workstation. Her nails had stopped tapping. "He does that," I said. "I see that," she said. She put the tablet down. She looked at Kale for a long moment, all 3 eyes on him, the third one moving to focus slightly slower than the other 2, the way it always did when she was thinking carefully. Then she picked the tablet back up and wrote her conclusion. She found no active threat markers, correct, no aggression indicators, no territorial signaling, no predatory fixation. Calm organism. She was precise about the language, she said, currently presents no active threat markers, which she distinguished clearly from is not dangerous, and I respected that distinction. She also noted apparent domesticated behavioral patterns, responsiveness to registered name, and tolerance of physical contact with owner. When she finished, she tapped 1 teal nail on the worktop once. A single clean sound, like a period at the end of a long sentence. "Tell me about the command deck meeting." Voric called it, himself, Cecily, me. I brought Kyle because no protocol yet existed, specifying that I shouldn't, and I follow protocols. And the default in the absence of one is that the animal remains with its registered owner, as per the companion registration form, which had been processed, stamped, and filed. The command deck runs on deep indigo ambient lighting with copper display frames along every wall. It is a formal space. The moment we walked in, Cal's fur shifted, the indigo light pulls the teal up through the grey, and he went deep ocean blue-green within about 30 seconds of crossing the threshold. He sat down in the middle of the floor and looked, I'll be honest with you, genuinely impressive. 3 of the deck officers noticed before they could decide not to. Zovak was stationed at the door. Stellan stood in the doorway just behind him, at the edge of the indigo light, watching the room with the expression of someone composing a very thorough account for later use. The situation was laid out. Manifest cleared. Archive produced no active containment protocol. Biological assessment showed no current threat indicators. Original form valid in every applicable field. Voric presented his incident report. The threat classification field read theoretical. He had selected it, held with it, and submitted it. I thought that showed resolve. Then the station commander asked what existing regulatory category applied to the creature. The silence that followed was comprehensive, in a way that silences in formal rooms rarely achieve. Voric pulled up the domestic companion animal registry. He cross-referenced it with the original form. He read the registry requirements. He read the form. He read the requirements again. His 8 eyes held very still across all of that, not moving between lines the way they normally did, just fixed, processing. Then he said, and I want to be precise because the wording is what matters here. The form meets every requirement of the current registry. The weight field rounds to bracket. The creature's bracket is large. The large category contains no upper limit. A shorter silence this time. Kale yawned. Full sequence, all 8 eyelids, on the command deck, in the indigo light, in front of the station commander and 6 deck officers, completely unhurried. Thoroughly complete. The station commander cleared her throat. She informed the room that the inquiry currently being conducted had been filed from the moment the automatic cross-reference triggered as a discovery and registration inquiry under the Natural Heritage Archive, not disciplinary. The form had flagged the cross-reference the moment it processed through the system. The creature was now the first living registered specimen of a re-emergent theoretical species. There was paperwork associated with this designation. She looked at me when she said the last part. I told her I was happy to fill it out. I had a pen. Blue ink. Voric received a station notation for procedural management of an unprecedented classification event. Cecily received a formal research designation for conducting the first biological assessment of a re-emergent theoretical species. Her cheekbone scales went warm gold when the designation was read out and stayed there. I received a commendation sticker for documentation accuracy. A physical sticker, adhesive-backed, approximately 2 centimeters across. I put it on the front cover of my file. I thought it looked good there. I still think that. Zovak received nothing. He was at the door. His long feline tail wagged anyway, small, steady, honest the way it did when he was pleased about something and had no other way to show it. I noticed. I don't think he knew anyone noticed. Is there anything you'd like to add for the record, Sergeant? No. I think that covers it. The form was correct. The animal is calm. The ink was blue. Can I go? He doesn't like being left too long. The archive representative paused, looked down at something beside their chair, looked back up. Kyle had been there the entire time, calm grey in the inquiry room light, broad flat skull level, 4 webbed paws settled on the floor. The canvas leash looped loosely from his collar to the chair leg beside the representative's seat. 8 eyelids cycled once, slow and complete. In the quiet of the inquiry room, beside a chair whose occupant had only just fully understood what they had been sitting next to for the duration of this interview, Blaine picked up his file. The commendation sticker caught the light. He held the door,